Hello and welcome to the Sports Countdown podcast with Declan Hughes and me, Peter Lynch. It's been an absolutely crazy week in the world of football with the European Super League dominating the headlines. We're absolutely delighted to be joined by Ben McKenna, football, rugby league and boxing writer at the Yorkshire Post, as we try and get our head around, what's happened this week. Before we get into it, I'd just like to say a quick shout out to Freelance Football Ops. They do a fantastic job sharing paid freelance football opportunities via a weekly newsletter. And you can find them on Twitter or LinkedIn if you want to know more. So let's get stuck into it. Welcome, Ben. It's great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, our pleasure. Obviously a lot has already changed since it started. But I thought I'd quickly run through the initial proposal, just to give a bit of context of the European Super League, and also because I just really don't know where to start with this. It's just been a bit crazy. So you have 20 participating clubs competing annually, 12 clubs confirmed as founding members, 15 clubs guaranteed to compete every season, 5 further clubs to qualify based on domestic performance, midweek fixtures, clubs to continue in their respective domestic leagues, and 2 groups of 10, 8 clubs progress to finals. As I say, it's rapidly changed pretty recently, but it's all up in the air now. But, can you remember your initial reaction to it all?
Well, it kind of got leaked that it was happening Sunday afternoon, so It's not the first time they've talked about doing something like this, but then when it actually broke on Sunday night or early Monday morning, I was kind of shocked that they actually had something in place. I can't imagine how many months of talks that would have took, secret talks probably, to get that ready and, get their wee website going and announce that this was happening. But it's clear they didn't consult anyone, fans, support, or players, managers, nobody knew about it apart from the people at the top. And sadly, it seems people at top football clubs don't care about football, just care about making money. And they soon found out that everybody else cares about football, and it was soon dead. I know Real Madrid are still, and Barcelona even came out today and said it's still a possibility. It still needs to happen, but that's probably down more to their financial mismanagement, that they want this kind of income that would be guaranteed every year. But it's just nonsense. I'm glad that it fell apart so quickly, because I was worried that it wouldn't. I was worried that this would be it, because, speaking as a fan of a top 6 Premier League club, what motivation is there for the owners to invest in the team if they're guaranteed millions and millions of pounds every single year if the club's finishing 8th or 9th in the league? What's the motivation to do well? So even if you're a fan who thinks this is great, we're going to be playing all these teams every week, we're going to have loads of money, there's no motivation for owners to invest more, because if they're looking at this from a business point of view to make more money, they're not going to be spending millions on the squad out of their own pocket, are they?
Crazy stuff.
No, that's a good point, Ben. Like, I never even thought of like teams like Liverpool, as you're saying, like, and they could finish 7th and 8th and it wouldn't. Who would care? Like, that league would just be pointless. It'd be pointless in playing in it. These teams, they may as well just form their own league and go and play in it, and just let like West Ham and stuff like that compete. But I just wanted to point on it was like, what's an elite club? Do you know what I mean? This is what they're saying. It's elite clubs. So you're talking like Arsenal and Spurs right now. They're not even in a European position. Like, Arsenal are what, 10th? Something like that. Like, Spurs aren't in the Champions League spots. They've never won a Champions League. They've never won a European Cup. So how are they elite? How do you define that? Is it just because they've got 100 million Twitter followers? Does that make them elite? You've got Man City and Chelsea, who didn't have a history until Abramovich came in, and then 2008 when City's owners come in. So they're elite just based on their financial well-being. I guess that is basically what it's all down to. It's all down to money, isn't it? It's just the fact that these clubs have got billionaires that can pump money into it, and then they're not satisfied with the millions that they're making from these clubs, and it's just completely against what the fans want.
Yeah, 100%. I tweeted as a joke. It was a bit of a joke, but kind of a serious point that Leeds United are a bigger club than half of the English teams that were put in this league.
Yeah.
You know, you look at clubs like Leeds, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest. You know, Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa have European Cups. Celtic have a European Cup. You know, I'd say Celtic and Rangers, they're huge clubs, but they weren't even considered because of what's happened to Scottish football in Europe over the last 10 years. It just doesn't seem like... I don't know. It like you say, it's just motivated by money. That's all it's motivated by, and it's so frustrating as a fan to, you know, care about a club and then see owners go off and do something like this. You know, I was so happy to see, you know, Chelsea fans out protesting their team. You know, there's a handful of Liverpool and Leeds fans outside their game on Monday night protesting, making their feelings known, but I didn't feel like it would be enough. You know, when the news came through that Chelsea were thinking of withdrawing and then City put out that statement, it's just like, yes, you know, we've beat them kind of thing. But
Yeah.
they'll be back. You know, they'll try this again in the next 2 or 3 years. This is almost going to be an ongoing battle until these clubs maybe get more control in the Champions League, or who knows. But they'll keep going until they get what they want. But it's almost up to us as fans to make sure that can't happen, because you look at West Ham and Leicester, they could end up third and fourth. What's the point in them being motivated to do anything in domestic competition if, you know, it's basically a cheat code if you're put in this Super League for these top 6 clubs? You know, there's, like you mentioned, Man City and Chelsea, the funds they had over the last 20 years. It makes it so much difficult for the teams around them to compete.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked off air for a second about the new UEFA Champions League like format where they're going to add in an extra 4 teams to it. It's going to be 36, and they're changing the group stage layout a little bit. So like I just feel that they've got what they wanted anyway. So there's going to be an extra 4 places in the Champions League. So you're not going to tell me that it's going to benefit Celtic, Rangers, Ajax. It's going to benefit these Super League clubs. It's going to benefit the English League, Spanish, Italian. They'll all probably get an extra spot in the Champions League, meaning you can finish 5th and 6th and still get into this format. So was this whole? I mean, you've got a thing in the back of my head saying like this whole thing was just some sort of like hoax thing, just to say, oh, we're going to do this, and then UEFA have panicked and UEFA went, oh well, hold on a minute, we'll revamp the Champions League, and it is going to benefit them. The revenue is going to increase, and there's going to be more elite clubs in it. So, like, it's just a farce, is like what I think everybody's been saying. It's just a complete joke. But can we talk a little bit about the reaction to it then? We said the fans, you mentioned a little bit, Ben, the fans have protested, which is who are the most important people in this. But we saw a little bit of a media reaction. Let's just say from Sky Sports, like Gary Neville and Jamie Redknapp were huge on it, really coming out and coming against their own clubs and how it was against everything that those clubs stood for, like the working class kind of background of it. And it's just American owners have come into these clubs and just want to kind of franchise it. If you compare it to like American football, where it's just, there's no relegation or whatever, it's just 20 teams and that's it. So good on them for like coming out against this, and like BT come out and said stuff, Gary Lineker come out and said stuff. But do you not think it's still a little bit hypocritical of like these Sky Sports were so huge and like commercializing the Premier League and made football more commercial. So it's all about views online. It's all about subscriptions. It's not really about the fans anymore. So do you just think it's a little bit, it's hypocritical of these people coming out and doing this when, like 2 years, just say 2 years down the line, and this thing happened, this Super League happened, they'd all be on board and they'd all be presenting on it and commentating on it, right?
Oh yeah. You know, maybe the specific example of Neville and Carragher might stay away given how adamant they were against it. But Sky Sports, like, they put new TV picks out for May, and there's a game at 8:15 on a Saturday night. Like, if that's putting TV revenue over anybody else, there's your example. And I know they'd say that, well, we're spreading the games out because no fans can go, so everybody can watch every game. But I completely agree. I think this shouldn't be the end of the fight from the fans to, the cost of away tickets. Anytime I've been to Anfield, it's cost me over £60 a ticket. But, I lived in Huddersfield for a few years out. There was times when they were in the Championship, I could get a ticket for £1 through the student union. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Premier League has become so inaccessible to so many supporters. It's just because of the likes of Sky and the Premier League itself. I think what annoyed me about the reaction of UEFA and everything, they were so stern, threatening expulsion. But last week, they found a player guilty of racism and only gave him a 10-game, which equates to a 6-week ban.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the more important issue is racism, but the most important issue to UEFA is the Super League because it's going to cost them money. This week I've been really a bit disillusioned by, football, that I didn't really care what the Liverpool result was on Monday. I watched the Man City game last night and enjoyed that as a neutral, almost not caring about the result, because these governing bodies just do it for themselves. And to say that UEFA were coming out trying to protect the fans, they weren't. They were protecting their own interests. And it's the same, I say, it was the same with Sky, but Gary Neville and the individuals who fought against it, I do believe that their hearts were in the right place, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. That's why, like, I was just gonna say, it's like every cloud has a silver lining. We saw everybody coming together, which is almost impossible in football. Like, you have United fans coming together with Liverpool fans, which is just unheard of. But then again, like you say, how much money you paid to go to games, and even stuff like merchandise, like buying a kit, it's incredible amounts of money. And maybe that's the way the world's going. But sticking to football, I think that's why, Declan, you mentioned it's like some sort of hoax. I think it can't be that, because I don't think they care about us three fans. I don't know how they labeled it, like legacy fans or fans for the future, things like that, which is just ridiculous. Like, so I think for me, as a business point of view, it makes sense, because you will have broadcast. I think they mentioned Disney and Amazon, like they would go for it 100%, and they'll make money from it. If it's Sky, they'll make money from it, and then the clubs and owners will all make money from it, and they will have people who are going to pay the money to watch these games, like online subscriptions and stuff like that. So that's why I think that's why you mentioned you were tweeting about a joke. I actually thought this was a joke when it happened. Somebody told me about it, and I thought it's just a joke. And even Ancelotti came out, I think, a couple of hours ago, saying he thought it was a joke, because it's just ridiculous what's been talked about and what's happened. But it is really good to see everybody sticking together. But I think, as you say, further down the line, it really could happen, and that's the worry, because they'll forget about fans who have been there through the thick and thin.
What do you think about, like, Flores coming out and saying the games need to be shorter as well? Like, it's just mind blowing, isn't it? It's like, did he say between like 16 and 24-year-olds aren't watching games, or they're not watching the whole game because it's too long and stuff? It's just so that I fall into that bracket of being 24, and that's never came across my mind that the game's too long. It's just some stuff that's come out this week's just been mind blowing. Like, you're just looking at it, and it's just absolutely mental. And coming from, like, in America, so back home, we've got Sky and like BT and stuff. But see here, there's like NBC Sports, who then also on Peacock TV, which you have to buy a subscription for to watch Premier League games at certain days. So those two companies, you need to buy the subscription for that, and then the broadcasting to watch it. You've got ESPN, you've got Sling TV. There's honestly about 10 subscriptions to watch, and this is to watch football. It's not even the most popular sport in this country, and I'm paying like 50 plus quid a month to watch some games. You know what I mean? The odd Celtic games on ESPN, but it's just a joke the way the subscriptions have happened this season as well. And then, as you're saying about moving these times and stuff like that, I think the Celtic game last night was only on Aberdeen or like Red TV, and then you had to pay a subscription to watch that on top of you buying a season ticket. It's just a joke the way that they've done it this season, especially during a pandemic when people don't have as much money. They're still just trying to take every single penny from you. It's just been a joke.
But they'll make money from that. Like, they will get boys paying that money.
Yeah, they don't, because they don't care about us, do they? They don't give. They really don't care about fans. They just care about they think like America, or everybody in America will want to watch this Champions Cup. Everybody in Asia, it's going away from like Europe. It's just making it a whole worldwide thing that they think. Then you're right, they will make money from it. So like from a business perspective, you're completely right. But from like a fan perspective, it's just completely wrong in a footballing standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. It annoys me, like, you know, when football has become a business and football clubs are businesses, but at the end of the day, they shouldn't be treated like that. These owners should know by now. You know, Fenway Sports Group have made enough mistakes at Liverpool in the past 4 or 5 years to know you can't treat this like a business. You know, them trying to furlough staff using the government scheme. Fans are like, "What are you doing? You've got plenty of money. Stop using our taxes when you can pay it yourself." You know, trying to trademark the name of the city, Liverpool, to stop independent sellers making Liverpool, you know, good stuff that I've bought. That's it's not copyright. It's stuff they've come up with, but they're trying to protect the brand of Liverpool Football Club. You know, it is all just so money driven. It just makes you angry. But then, you know, you turn the TV on, your team's playing, you want them to do well because you have that emotional attachment. It's hard to kind of, you know, a lot of my anger this week's been at FSG as a Liverpool fan. It's not been at the players or Klopp. And, you know, I loved how the players came out on, what was it, Tuesday night? I can't remember when it all kicked off, but when they came out and said, we don't want this, before Liverpool pulled out. And Pep Guardiola earlier in the day at his press conference kind of saying that it wasn't real sport because you're not competing to win, really, because you're guaranteed a seat at the table, aren't you?
I mean, Arsenal at the start of the pandemic get rid of their mascot because they didn't have enough money, or they thought they didn't have enough money when they're owned by billionaires. It just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? They can still pay wages of the players, but I mean, how much does what's it called, Gunnosaurus? How much does he get paid a week? Do you know what I mean? It's just it's mental, these decisions. But we mentioned the governing bodies, so like UEFA and FIFA coming out, taking the big ship, acting the biggin. So the statement I said this before we went on air again. The statement mentioned the word greed of these clubs involved, which is probably the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard from UEFA and FIFA, because they host a competition called the Champions League, where how many champions are in it out of the 32 that automatically go into it? 5, maybe 5, 6. Do you know what I mean? 5 of them, 5, 6 into it. When you've got others like, so Celtic, Rangers, you know, like the Ukrainian League, the Irish League, the Dutch League, they all need to qualify to get into this tournament when it's the Champions League. So, and then you've got like even West Ham, right? West Ham story is good if they finish in the top 4, but them finishing 4th and they automatically get into the Champions League, that's great to me, in my opinion. UEFA are more concerned about losing these elite clubs to this super club or this super league. When Ben, you mentioned players are getting racially abused on a field and they just kind of sweep that aside. Why is that not getting talked about? Because it's greed, because they'll lose money from these teams. They don't care about Glenn Kamara getting racially abused, do they? They've still banned him for some reason. All this stuff gets swept under the carpet. That's greed. It's all about money. You've got FIFA, supposed to have the best intention of football worldwide, when they've stole the heart of our game by decades ago by selling like match fixing these games, match fixing World Cups. They've sold TV rights to specific companies. They've got sponsorships with Coca-Cola and whatever. They've sold the game. They've sold our game. Why? Because it's just greed. And then you've got both FIFA and UEFA, who, when it comes to Champions League finals, when it comes to World Cup finals, how many fans of these teams and countries go to the game? It's like 20%, 10% each. 80% of it goes to these chairmans, these organisations, bankers and whatever. Why are they getting the tickets? It puts the fans out. It's just greed. So that's my rant on that. It's just an absolute disgrace at what this whole thing's transpired. But then UEFA and FIFA trying to take the high ground from it when they're the most corrupt, one of the most corrupt sporting agencies or governing bodies in the world that we've seen. It's just mind blowing that they try and come out and take the high ground from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the only anger that I believe is genuine is that of the supporters.
Yep.
That's the only anger you can trust, because you know I didn't talk to a single person. You know, I'm friends with people who support a variety of different clubs from Premier League, Championship, you know, and not a single person felt the Super League was a good idea. I'm yet to meet someone. If you're listening to this and you thought it was a good idea, you know, let us know. Tell us why, because I'd really like to know. Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it's crazy. And you mentioned about, you know, FIFA. You know, that they didn't. I didn't see much about FIFA getting angry about this. It's almost like they were just almost happy to let it happen. But you know, FIFA can't take the high ground on anyone if they plan to, given the World Cup coming up in Qatar next winter, considering the people that have died rushing to build stadiums for a country that wasn't ready to host the World Cup. There's so much about football when you really look into it that just makes you just want to just go and follow another sport, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my big thing. Like the fact that Qatar is still going ahead and it's next year. Like it seems like a while away, but it's literally next year, 2022. And we talked about racism as well briefly. So that's the two things. Like, and other things that I hope that fans now, like, look what fans have done for something like a Super League. Like, I mean, why can't they push together for changes with issues like racism? Like that's what Patrick Bamford said on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other players have spoken about it, and then Qatar as well. So fingers crossed that there's something brighter in the future. Um, but yeah, obviously you're a massive Liverpool fan. Just maybe briefly on that, we've spoken about FSG. Saw a lot of your tweets. Not happy with them, of course. That's understandable. Um, so like many other English clubs, fans have gone crazy. They've said they've taken their flags out of stadiums in protest. Manager speaking out, Jurgen Klopp, players as well. You talked about Jordan Henderson leading the way on social media, and just recently we saw Ed Woodward at United announce his departure at the end of the year, I think. So, can you see any like future implications for the likes of John Henry, the likes of even Jurgen Klopp? I dread to say that, but can you see anything happening?
No, I think Klopp will stay until his contract's up in the end of 2024 season. So a couple of years. I think he'll stay. I think this season you can see he's been annoyed by the owners, when all three centre backs were injured and they refused to sign anyone, and now look at struggling to get in the Champions League. But this is just speculation. I don't know how long these European Super League talks have been going on for, but maybe they thought, oh, we'll have the Super League next year, so we don't need to worry about a top four finish. Who knows? And if that's the case, if I don't think if that was the case that would ever get out, because they'd probably be run out of the city. But I can't see FSG going anywhere. They bought the club for 300 million from two other failing owners. They got it for a steal, really. When Liverpool, I'd say, if they put that club up for sale, maximum they could probably get 3 billion for it. That's maximum, but they're probably looking at least 1.5 billion. Who's got that kind of money that's going to come in and be ethical? No one. There's in my opinion, there's not a single billionaire that's going to come in and be ethical, because how have they got their fortune? They've probably not been ethical in doing it, because 1 billion's so much money. Who needs that amount of money? Like, if they put it up for sale, or the Saudis going to come in and say we couldn't get Newcastle, now we want Liverpool. And as Liverpool fans, we couldn't really say great, FSG out, and then welcome these guys in with open arms. It's there's nothing we can do. I think, like, you look at Man United and the Glazers, they've wanted them out for pushing decades now, and they're still sitting cozy. They're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. FSG have done enough to tell me they just don't get the values of the club in the city. Liverpool's a very socialist city. It's very left wing, very Labour, and the club probably likes to think it's got those values, but obviously with the commercialization of football, it's very different now to when, like, Shankly was around. I obviously wasn't alive, but I can't see FSG going anywhere. And a long answer to your question, there's too much money there to make from Liverpool. You look at LeBron James has a stake in the club, probably one of the top 5 most famous athletes in the world. there's far too much money to be made for them to think, right, we'll just sell. They just sit in Boston all the time anyway. They don't. What took them 3 days to say sorry?
Crazy,
there was more from the Real Madrid president and Joel Glazer on the Liverpool website about the Super League for 3 days than there was from their own owner. That's pathetic. It's pathetic behaviour. I want them gone. I'm not going back to a game until they are gone. So that could be 10 years, 20 years. But I don't want to spend any of my money into their pockets. Same with buying shirts or anything. Nothing. I'm done. I'll watch the games on TV. I'll support the team, but not a single penny of my money is going into FSG's pocket.
Yeah. To be fair though, you're, as far as I'm aware, we've actually been to a few games together, and you're a bit of a bad luck charm. I don't know if you've turned that around.
No. I turned it around. Since living in England, I've been loads. So I was there when we qualified for the League Cup final. I know that was like 6. I was there when we beat PSG 3-2.
Okay.
I was there when we beat Everton 5-2. That's just the ones off the top of my head. So
yeah.
I'm not having that anymore.
That was a while ago, to be fair, when we were going together.
1-0 Villa at Bangalore.
Yeah, I was there. I'm pretty sure I was
there. It was me. Oh, it was grim. That was grim. Barini up front.
Don't remind us.
As you said, Ben, like, it's just the way football's going right now. Like, we've talked about the commercialisation, the money to be made. Like, it's never going to go back to like the 70s, 80s, like prior, where it's just all about the like fan ownership and stuff. We're never going to get back there. Well, the Premier League's never going to get back there unless like TV deals just collapse. There's just no way like you're saying, these American owners coming in who don't even know what the offside rule and stuff is. It's like Ted Lasso. It's like watching that. Like, they've just not got a Scooby what's going on. But if there's money to be made, they'll just always be there. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way, especially the Premier League's going to go. Anyway, we always do a top 3 on this podcast. So tough this week with what we're discussing. So what we're just going to do is, Ben, who are the top 3? What's the top 3 contributing factors to this Super League proposal? Who's to blame for this? Is it governing bodies? Is it the owners? Is it consumerism? Who's to blame?
It's definitely got to lie at the feet of the old clubs. Real Madrid and Barcelona. I've been reading stuff from Sid Lowe and the Guardian. They are financially, and they have no money, so they've just looked at this as, yeah, we'll just do this, because they're always going to get top 4 in Spain. So to them, maybe it's not as controversial to try and pull away people in Spain. May obviously have a different opinion to me because they know more about their league than me. But yeah, I think the owners of these clubs are number 1, which then number 2 is greed.
Yeah.
And then number 3, I don't know, but I'd say obviously I heard that Fiorentino Perez was the driving force, and he's still harping on. He had a midnight press conference there in Spain last night going on about this league, how it's not dead. It's like, mate, just go home. Like, you're 74, like, just retire, like, enjoy the rest of your life without the stress. Do you know what I mean? Like, leave us be.
Yeah.
But
just
yeah.
not giving up. No, that's fair enough. I mean, it was a pretty difficult question to give you, but I mean, I think we all know who's to blame. It's just where the blame lies, the majority of it. But hopefully he gives in, Perez. Hopefully the others that are still, trying to get it happening, hopefully they realise what they've done and try and think of us little fans before they think of anyone else.
Yeah, it was funny hearing UEFA say they're going to put them all out of the Champions League. It's like you couldn't even follow through your charge on Man City when you had the FFP allegations there on a plate. Like, I would love to have seen that maybe play out a little bit more, just to see what would have happened. There's no way. They're just empty threats from UEFA. They're just as much to blame as well, because they've given into these clubs for decades. It's like Declan was saying earlier, Champions League. No, it's not. It's not the Champions League. I like the Champions League. I like the format. Yeah. But yeah, it's not the Champions League, is it?
It did say, like, the UEFA president did come out and say it needs the likes of Celtic, Rangers, like Atalanta, like Ajax. It said they need them because they've got this like European history of being involved, and they've obviously won the European Cup, blah blah blah. But you say that, and then again, it's just hypocritical because you make it as tough as possible for these teams to actually get into the competition. I mean, last year Celtic had to play 4 qualifiers. Okay, it was during COVID and it was only one leg, and obviously what happened. And but the time you get to the fourth qualifier, you're going to play like Ajax and Celtic are probably going to play each other. Do you know what I mean? So then only maybe one will get in, one or two, but they just make it as tough as possible for these teams that they claim they want involved to be there. Do you know what I mean? I know they've going next season, or not this qualifying, but the year after, I think the champions of Scotland do automatically go in, which is, I guess, a good step. But for the last 10 years, they've just made it as tough as possible for these teams to actually have to stand a chance of even getting there. So, as you're saying, UEFA are never going to be the good guys in this situation.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, like we've discussed a lot about it, and we could sit here all day, every day, and talk about it. And there's probably still a lot that's going to happen in the coming days. And you know, you look on Twitter, social media, it's every single post you see. Even non-football fans are getting involved because it's just blocking up the whole timeline. Like, so you know,
it was the biggest news story, one of the biggest news stories of the year, isn't it? You know, front pages of papers across England on Monday, Tuesday morning were just stop the paragraph. You know, when does football ever get the front page of every single paper?
Yeah, my brother-in-law, who knows nothing about football, was even talking about this. He just likes the NFL, and I was talking to him, and he knew about it, and he knows nothing at all. It's just took over, as you're saying, it's just took over social media, and I guess it's like social media can be a good thing then because it gave the genuine fans a chance to also rally against it. So for all the negativity that social media does have, I guess this was a good outlet for it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Definitely. Well, I mean, it seems like a good place to leave it there because we could talk about it all day, but we have lives to get back to, I think. So, no, Ben, it was really, really great to hear from you. Great insight there. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolute
much appreciated. I was watching a few episodes. I was wondering when you're going to ask me. You know, I was hoping to be on soon.
I mean, we're keeping you up for the biggest news story of the year. Come on.
Much appreciated.
No, it's a pleasure. And Declan, thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for the rant. Appreciated that.
Unreal, mate.
And you know, to our listeners, followers, thank you so much for tuning in all these weeks. We really appreciate it. And yeah, just keep following, keep listening, and we'll be back for more next week.